The Tax Ombud has a new head in office. Yanga Mputa is the first female to be appointed in that position. She takes over from Judge Bernard Ngoepe, who served 2 terms, but it's at a time where a new system has already resulted in multiple complaints in this year's tax season. The admitted attorney is no stranger, though, to tax policy administration and implementation after having honed her skills at SARS and National Treasury. Joins us now in studio. Thank you so much for your time, Yanga. First of all, let's talk about the first 2 weeks in office. It's still quite new.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I feel honored. It's still quite new. I've got only 14 days in the office.
14 days? What has that been like? Because that 14 days would have come before the official start of the 2023 tax season.
Yes, the 14 days has been hectic, I must say.
Yeah.
But the nice thing is that, as you said, I'm no stranger to the tax environment. I've got the tax administration background as well as the tax policy background. So in these 14 days, we've been working. The handover, there was handover being done as well as induction.
Yeah.
So as to get the role of my new office. So that's what I've been familiarizing myself with, the role of the office. Even though I'm no stranger, but this is a new office and I must not take it lightly.
Let's get into the role of the office. Yes. I think the mandate of the Tax Ombud's office is an important one, particularly when we have complaints.
Yes, it is a very important mandate because we deal with the complaints by taxpayers against SARS. And our mandate is to be impartial and resolve taxpayer complaints, and thereafter make recommendations for SARS to implement. And so far, 98% of the recommendations made by the Tax Ombud have been implemented by SARS.
And with the SARS background, it gives you a fine, detailed look into what is likely to be expected on the side of complaints. In South Africa, where do some of these complaints that are brought to the Tax Ombud dominate, and what are they? Would they be from a personal perspective or from businesses?
They range from personal to businesses. Mostly from businesses is mostly VAT refunds.
Yeah.
And I think you've seen our report regarding that on the systemic review of the VAT refunds, whereby we've done a report and we've put it on our magazine, The Fair Play. So mostly it's personal complaints, but also on businesses is VAT refunds.
Now, the dynamics have changed since COVID-19 because we did have a period where we were not able to physically engage with the SARS office or the Tax Ombud. Yes. How much of that change has been factored into where you are going as the Tax Ombud office, particularly because with the introduction of the automatic assessments, quite a lot of complaints have come through and some South Africans are not satisfied. So let's talk about how that is going to be handled, particularly with sensitivity.
Yes, what happens is that the Tax Ombud also handles complaints with top secrecy because these are taxpayer complaints. So we understand that SARS has started the auto-assessment season, and then in terms of the complaints, taxpayers need to go first to SARS and see if SARS cannot resolve the complaints. And if SARS cannot resolve the complaints, then they can come to the office of the Tax Ombud. Unless the complaints are causing hardship to taxpayers, then they can come directly to the office of the Tax Ombud. So the COVID season has seen us being able to interact with taxpayers virtually, whereby the taxpayers can phone regarding the complaints, but we still need to work on the issue of the complaints of the application being filed via online, because the taxpayers still need to download the application, complete it, and then email it to us. So if we can do an online application, that would be better.
It brings to question the timelines where turnaround is concerned based on dealing with the case, resolving it, and coming up with an outcome. What are those for the Ombuds office? It
depends on the difficulties of the case, because some cases regarding VAT refunds may take some time because it's delay in payment of VAT refunds. And because we are linked to the SARS system, we are able to check what is the cause of the delay. And we find out that the reason why there is a cause of the delay, you find that taxpayers do not submit the required documentation. So it goes back to the taxpayer to submit required documentation. So it delays the time period regarding the completion of the complaints depends on the on the difficulty of the complaint.
And it's a critical point that you raised there, the submission of proper documentation that is required. Would you say that at times as complainants in South Africa there is that misalignment? Maybe as an example for a business that would not have all their documentation in place and they end up losing out in terms of finding recourse with the Ombuds Office?
Yes, I think there is a misalignment, but SARS is doing its own educational campaign. And also the Tax Ombud is going to do its own educational campaign regarding #taxpayer rights. But when we do the campaign for the taxpayer rights, we must also teach taxpayers about tax compliance, because you can't have a right without you able being to be compliant with the tax laws.
The education part is also very vital. What goes into it? I mean, the basics, the 101 of informing South Africans about the Tax Ombud Office, what do we need to know?
What do you need about the Office of the Tax Ombud is that we do exist only to resolve the complaints by taxpayers against SARS. And we are an impartial, independent office. So when you see us, we are not SARS. We are independent from SARS. We are functionally independent from SARS. We make our own decisions independent of SARS. So we want to give that message to the taxpayers that they do not see us and think that we are SARS. We are independent from SARS in terms of the functions.
What happens when an individual or a business is aggrieved and does not agree with the finding of the Tax Ombud, having complained about an issuance from SARS? Where then does the next step go in terms of recourse?
In terms of recourse, then the next step is that the taxpayer can go to court. It does not end there, because we are the entity that can resolve taxpayer complaints. If the taxpayer is not happy with our finding, then the taxpayer can take it up to court. And then the court can decide. It's
interesting because there are so many channels in terms of recourse that South Africans do absolutely need to know about. I'm also very interested, Yanga, in finding out the challenges that you may have identified as early on into the office. The Ombudsman has had a very credible, timeline of results, but at the same time, there have been bumps along the way where delays are just chief among those challenges.
Yes, the delays are the chief among those challenges, but we're going to try to resolve the taxpayer complaints quickly. But as I said, that it depends on the nature of the complaint, because I can promise you that this is going to be quick, but the nature of the complaint is complex. So it's going to depend on that. But another challenge, as I said, is to go digital, to be able to give up-to-date regarding the taxpayer complaints via SMS, because now we do not have that channel. Whereas when you file your tax return, SARS is able to give you the update via the SMS. We want to be able to be upgraded to do that. Another thing that we want to do is awareness, to be the beacon of hope for taxpayers, whereby we are accessible to the underserved communities. That is what we want to do, to be more accessible, more visible. So the awareness that we're going to be launching in August is going to be based on that.
Now, with a focus on being accessible, we must also then address an issue around whether the Tax Ombudsman's office is capacitated well enough by the state, be it from a financial point of view or just for support in general.
I must say that in terms of financial support, we are, because we are still a small office. But I must say, as we grow, then we're going to need more support, both financially and structurally. Because if now we are receiving more complaints and we want footprints around the province or around the country, meaning that if you decide maybe to go to the underserved provinces like Eastern Cape and Limpopo, this implies that we'll need regional offices there, even if it's satellite offices. Then we'll need more capacity and more funding from the state. But it depends on the nature of the complaints. This implies that we should keep on growing our complaints book.
And of course the digitization of your work is going to require that financial muscle to reach those far-flung areas. Is there a budget so far for it?
The nice thing is that we've come now in the middle, and then the budget is next year. So the nice thing now is that when we do the awareness campaign is that we will see how much budget we need. But this implies that we'll have to make representations to the Minister of Finance, because it's the one that allocates the budget to us. And it is important to note that the Office of the Tax Ombuds, the services are free. Government is giving these services for free.
It's the awareness part that I'm absolutely excited about, because every South African needs to know about the work of the Tax Ombud, especially in tax filing season. Yes. We wish you all the best. Thank you for your time. That is Yanga Mputa, the new Tax Ombud in South Africa.